All right, so we are on to probably my favorite section of the entire year. We are going to talk about trigonometry. What I love about it is that it sounds kind of scary, but it's not. And you sound really cool that you can actually do trig. When you tell people, like, yeah, I can do trig, you sound pretty cool. So trig functions, there are three of them: sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine, cosine, and tangent. They are used not only in geometry, but you will be using them again in Algebra 2, I think towards the end of the year. And then if you end up taking like a trig course, like obviously a trig course is very heavy in trig. But this is my favorite stuff in the whole entire world. So with trig ratios, like I said, there's sine, cosine, and tangent. The main thing that you have to do is you have to set up ratios. Ratios are fractions, and you have to set up the fractions of the sides in a correct way. So a couple of terms that we have to talk about first, and this is we're going to ease our way into trig ratios. So there's going to be three different sides that you're going to have to use of a triangle, because these all have to do with triangles. And you have to make sure that you use the correct side. So there's three terms that we have to chat about. So first thing is the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Hopefully at this point you know what the hypotenuse is. The hypotenuse is the side across from the 90-degree angle. So like when we were doing Pythagorean theorem, it would be like C. So the hypotenuse is the side across from the 90-degree angle. No matter what, that is the hypotenuse. Now the two legs, because in a right triangle, you have the hypotenuse, and then this is a leg, and this is a leg. The two legs, you're going to label in a couple of different ways. You don't get to choose. It's all going to be dependent on what angle they tell you to go from. There is going to be an adjacent leg. Adjacent legs mean that the adjacent leg is going to be attached. It's the leg attached to the angle. And they are going to tell you an angle. So the adjacent leg is the attached leg to the angle. And then the other piece is the opposite leg. So the opposite leg is the leg across from the angle. So the hypotenuse gets its own special name, and then we have adjacent and opposite. You're going to hear me say opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse a ton today. So prepare yourself. I'm warning you. This is what's happening. All right, so a couple of things I wanted to show you, or one first example. I'm kind of doing my own examples today. I'm going rogue. Is if we take a look at this right triangle, I want to figure out which leg is opposite angle A, which leg is adjacent to angle A, and which side is the hypotenuse. So when we are naming these sides, when you name a side, you use two letters. So if I'm doing the leg opposite angle A, so here's angle A, opposite angle A means I go across from angle A, and the leg that is opposite angle A is this right here, which is side BC. The leg adjacent to angle A, so adjacent again meant attached to. Now for angle A, you have this side that's attached to it and this side that's attached to it. This side is not a leg though. This has its own special name. So when I say leg adjacent, this is the only leg adjacent to angle A. So it's going to be AC. And then the hypotenuse is always the side across from the 90-degree angle, and that is going to be AB. So please make sure you understand what opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse mean in terms of an angle, because here in a second we're going to be using our trig functions, and you have to make sure you know what opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse mean. So rewind if you need to, pause, all that fun stuff. If not, we're going to keep on going here. So that's what opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse mean. So how we're going to use that today is we are going to use opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse to help us to set up our trig ratios. So the trig ratios, we're going to start with sine. And what they do is they do relate the sides lengths of a right triangle to an angle. So sine is spelled S-I-N-E, but when it's abbreviated, I'm really not sure why they abbreviate a four-letter word. It seems silly to me, but you would say sine of A. And they always do sine, cosine, or tangent of an angle. So sine of A means sine is the leg opposite angle A over the hypotenuse. So sine is the leg, whatever leg is opposite angle A over the hypotenuse. How you're going to hear me say it, I'm not going to say leg anymore, and I'm not going to say angle A. You're going to hear me say a lot, opposite over hypotenuse. So that's what sine is. From here on out, you're going to hear me say that sine is opposite over hypotenuse. If I don't say hypotenuse, then I'm basically talking about a leg. So that's why we're just going to say opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is another trig function. Cosine also uses a leg and the hypotenuse. Cosine is going to be the leg adjacent to angle A over the hypotenuse. Remember, we're setting up ratios. We're setting up these fractions. So because it's the leg adjacent over the hypotenuse, you're not going to hear me say leg at angle A anymore. You're going to hear me say adjacent over hypotenuse. So sine was opposite over hypotenuse from the angle, and cosine was the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And it's all based off an angle. So this one was cosine of angle A. So which leg is adjacent over the hypotenuse? And there's going to be different sides that you kind of have to pay attention to. Tangent is the only one that does not use the hypotenuse. So we do not care about the hypotenuse with tangent. For tangent, you do the leg opposite angle A over the leg adjacent to angle A. So tangent, how you're going to hear me say it, is opposite over adjacent. Now, you will have to need to make sure that you know which, like that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, that cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. And there is a cool way to remind yourself or remember this. And I'm sure even if you told your parents this little mnemonic device, they would remember it. So the way that I remember it, and I still to this day at the top of every single worksheet or answer key that I make, I write the following. I write so, ka, toa. So, ka, toa. So says, or what it means is sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So here in a second, when we go to walk through an example, you're going to see the very first thing I do, I write down SOHCAHTOA, because I don't want to, like, this is like almost foolproof if you know what these terms mean. So let's take a look at how you're going to be using this today. So another example here, and again, like I said, I'm going to write so. The minute I see sine, cosine, and tangent, that's going to be my red flag. So, ka, toa. And you're going to be using SOHCAHTOA for almost the next month. So please make sure that you become very familiar with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to write these ratios. And it says sine of E. So I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to put it on E. So remember up here how we did leg opposite A, leg adjacent to A. Well, that's kind of the same thing. They're telling you now that you're going to be looking at, well, for sine, you're going to do opposite and hypotenuse from angle E. So I always put my pen on the angle that they give me, and sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the side that is opposite angle E, or the leg that is opposite angle E, is this leg right here, which is 3. over the hypotenuse has a length of 5. And just leave it. That's all you're doing today is setting up fractions. Cosine of E. So again, cosine is the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. So if here is E, remember a leg is a side connected to the right angle. So this is my adjacent leg, so 4 over the hypotenuse is still the same across from the 90-degree angle. That's your hypotenuse. So 4 over 5. And if you feel the need to label your hypotenuse so you know that's where you always plug in H, totally fine, because then this is going to be O or A. O or A, depending on the angle. And then now they want you to do the tangent of E. So here's E. Tangent is opposite, 3, over adjacent, 4. So a lot of today is just setting up those fractions. So let's take a look at one more example, and then I'm going to let you loose. Your assignment today is a little, you've got a couple of different things you're doing. So let's just take a look at number 1 here. And again, we're doing sine, cosine, and tangent. So the very first thing I'm going to do is write TOA. Across from a 90-degree angle, the 13 is my H. The 12 and the 5 are my legs, so those could be O's or A's depending on which angle they want me to go from. So first thing is this sine of A. So I'm going to put my pen on A. Sine is opposite, so the side opposite here is 5 over H is the hypotenuse, which is 13. We labeled that one, so 5 over 13. Cosine of A, so cosine is adjacent, 12 over the hypotenuse, which is 13. There's really no math involved today, if you notice that. And then tangent from the angle, from A, opposite, 5 over adjacent, 12. That's it. Let's take a look at this, because I kind of like the fact that they gave you 2 different problems, like using the same triangle, but we're going to do 2 different sine, cosines, and tangents. So now we're going to go from angle C. So from angle C, again, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So from C, the opposite leg is 12. Now the hypotenuse stays the same though. The hypotenuse is still going to be 13. Now from angle C, the adjacent side is 5, and still the hypotenuse is 13. And then for the tangent, opposite angle C is 12 over the adjacent, which is 5. So today you're going to be either identifying opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuses of, I don't even think that's a real word, of triangles. Depending on what you're given, you're also going to be setting up the ratios. And you're going to be doing this for the next couple of days because we do have that virtual week coming up next week. So it may seem like we kind of preloaded a lot of this stuff to help you out. You will notice on Monday that the assignments for the entire week will be posted. And when I say assignments, I don't mean that you're going to have like 15 of them. Like it's going to be in a very light week. So hopefully you take advantage of that and stay caught up or get caught up. But check on Monday to see what the plan is for the week. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a good weekend, you guys.